Good afternoon, everybody. Today is, annually we release the popular annual financial report. We've been doing this now, I think it's the 9th year that we've done it. This is considered a best practice for cities to have a user-friendly version of our financial statements, and this is basically derived from the comprehensive annual financial report that we released earlier this year. It continues to win awards for transparency and financial reporting, and won an award again last year, and we'll submit this one again for an award. I'll buzz through some of this early stuff, but it's basically a snapshot of Pittsburgh as of the end of last year. It's our way of providing outreach to the community so that to get them more engaged in our finances, being transparent. We try to be as transparent as possible. I'd say this report is quite transparent, so transparent if you look close enough you might even find out what's in the Amazon deal somewhere in there. Just kidding. But we are trying, so we're trying to do that. A couple of things that might attract your attention, just general facts about the city, some things that were going on this year, movies that were filmed here and TV shows, and some of the other great things that were going on in city in 2017. The bulk of the finances of the report really start on pages 9 and 10, which I'll jump up to here. And I just want to talk about this. I talked a little bit about this when we released the CAFR, but just to hit it home again, we have the 4 major taxes that fund our city: property taxes, earned income taxes, payroll, prep, and parking. Those 4. As I mentioned this a little bit when we released the CAFR, we have to start thinking about these taxes as we move forward. We continue to be a city that's losing population, and as you lose population, at some point it's going to affect real estate. Obviously, it has an effect on earned income because earned income is only charged to people who actually live here. And so we worry about our 2 biggest taxes as population declines, even though last year we continued to grow and even beat budget last year. The other one, of course, payroll prep. Our biggest concern with that tax is that our largest employers don't pay it, right? So the nonprofits do not pay the payroll prep tax, so that's always a concern. And then parking, which has been a wonderfully performing tax for the city, you have to wonder about in the future. As we deal with these issues of mobility, and we talk about shared services on rides, bikes, and other means of transportation. What does that mean to the parking tax as we move forward? Will we still have the need for as many garages, and what will that do to revenue? I don't think that's something that's in our immediate concern, but looking out to the future, we have to start thinking about, what is the future of the parking tax, given the fact that the parking tax is tied to other financial aspects of our budget, including the pension fund. So those things are things that we will think about as we move forward. On the expense side, the only point to make here again is that public safety. Our primary objective in the city is to keep people safe, and 54% of our money goes to police, fire, and EMS, and that's not counting the money that goes to the pensions for those departments. So again, probably when you add that in, probably 60% of our entire budget goes to our efforts to keep people safe, and a big number there. So 2017, again, as we mentioned earlier, a surplus for the city. We had a pretty good year on paper, improved our net position, increased the funded level of the pension fund, reduced our long-term debt. As you can see here, over time we continue to reduce our long-term debt, but continue to have challenges like infrastructure and in particular drinking water. We are dealing with this issue now with PWSA. We want to, continue what has started over the last 8 months or so. The lead line replacements are that they're continuing to do that throughout the city. No one's been more critical of that agency than I have been. But I have to say, what I've seen over the last 6 to 8 months is a dramatic improvement in that agency. Any idea of selling that agency to a private company, fortunately, the mayor has come out against that idea, because I don't think that would have helped us at all. More money would have been going to shareholders than to the ratepayers and improving that system. So those are the challenges. Again, we talked a little bit about this when we released the CAFR. So let me talk a little bit about what's going on this year, 2018, because 2018 is proving to be a much more challenging year than 2017. Revenues, for the most part, are on track for budget, and that's good news. But as we said in past years, at this point in the year, we were outperforming budget on the revenue side. We're not doing that right now this year. So we're looking at a year coming in much closer to budget, which likely means a smaller surplus, if a surplus at all. One tax I want to talk about in particular where we are significantly underperforming budget is the deed transfer tax. This is a tax that council decided to increase last year, despite our objections and objections of many others, that would have a negative impact by either scaring buyers away or requiring homeowners to reduce prices to sell in the city. Well, it appears that both of those things have happened because we've had fewer sales, and it appears that we're having sales at lower prices, because at this point in the year last year, we had generated $12 million in revenue in real estate transfer taxes, and this year we're down to $9 million. And that's after having raised the tax. So you can see the impact that has had. We predicted that would happen standing at this podium last year, but despite that, council still increased that tax, and you can see the effect it's having. I still maintain that was an unnecessary increase, that it will cause the real estate market to underperform, and above all, it's counterproductive to the stated goal, which is affordable housing. So it's not been a good performer for us. On the expenditure side, we have concerns as well in 2018, because while most departments are on track to make budget, there are 3 departments in particular that are over budget enough at this point in the year to be concerned. So we are now at halfway through the budget, and we've got a few departments that have spent 55-57% of their budget, and so we are going to send. I'm going to communicate once we get final numbers in at mid-year. We'll be sending notice to the police bureau, the EMS bureau, and the Public Works Bureau, just to make them aware of where they are. I'm sure they probably already know, but we want to get on record that they're going to need to take some corrective action in the second half of the year if they're going to be able to make budget. I don't think it's hard to understand why they're over budget, right? We've had these big emergency events, right? We've had these weather-related events. We've had landslides and floods, and earlier in the year we had some challenging snow issues. So it's not surprising that Public Works and police and EMS are over at this point in the year, but they're over enough that we think that they should begin to think about corrective action in the second half of the year, so that they can at least attempt to make budget. So those are the 2 issues that we have to talk about for this year. So I'll take questions if you have them.
Do you have a sense of how many fewer property sales there have been?
We're going to get that number. Yeah, we've just, like I said, we don't have. What I have is a sort of what do I say, an estimate of where we are for mid-year. We don't have final June numbers yet. So once we get the June numbers on the realty transfer tax, then we're going to take a look, and we're going to ask the deed registry to run us a report to see how many transfers there have been, and we need to give them some time to get that number too. So we'll have that number when we get it to you. When we get it, we'll get it to you. So we'll see what the number is and what the average sale number is as well.
So that was going to be my other question.
Yeah.
Sale price.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, we'll once we have that, once we know how many transfers there are, then we'll be able to deduce the average sale.
Could you talk a little bit more about obviously public safety seems to be over budget at this point, and I know you mentioned the weather-related things. I don't know if protests might also factor into that, or how updated your understanding
Yeah, so the most recent protests would not be in this number because, well, they've just happened more recently. So we're following along the police department, but clearly the protests require increased police presence, and so you're drawing manpower. You're likely using overtime to some degree, and we are at full staff in the police department. So it's we're just seeing and understand the concern. If you look through our financials, if you went online and looked at the monthly reports, you might see some departments that are significantly over 50% at this point in the year. But when you go back and look, you see that a lot of their expenses were front-loaded. Maybe they encumber all their rents in the beginning of the year, that kind of thing. What I'm mostly concerned about is that salary number, right? When the salary number is at 57%, at 50% of the year is gone, then you have some concerns. Now, in the police department, some of that is recoverable, so some of that money will get recovered. Some of the police salary numbers will include different events where, Kenny Chesney or some of these events, we'll get some recovery from some of that money. But still, that's a pretty high number to be at this point in the year, at least enough that I feel that we should get everyone on notice that, hey, you've got a problem here. Let's make sure it's addressed.
Police specifically were 57%?
Right. Yeah. So, Public Works, again, I think that's easy to see why. I mean, we've had all these landslides. They're being called out, a lot more. So their salary numbers are up as well. Their numbers after summer tend to drop a little anyway. So they'll have the ability to kind of get back on track as the year goes on into the fall. So, but for right now, it's high enough that we thought we should at least give them notification.
Reduction in revenue from the realty transfer tax.
Yeah.
Transfer tax. Do you have a sense at this point about the implications of that for the housing opportunity fund?
Well, the housing opportunity fund commitment is I believe this year $5 million supposedly from that money. We've collected $9 million, so there's enough there to meet the obligation, but that's a big drop. I mean, if we were $12 million last year, we're at $9 million. If that continues on, not only will we be behind last year, but we won't make budget on deed transfer this year. That's not to say that doesn't happen, and it's all dependent on the real estate market. And to some degree, there are other factors, right? Interest rates are going up, so that might have a factor there as well. But again, if there was ever a reason not to raise taxes, it's when interest rates are going up because you're already going to feel a pinch, right, on real estate sales. So it's just, certainly there's enough money to meet their commitment on the Affordable Housing Task Force, but they're talking about raising the tax again. They're going to raise it to 5. It's at 4.5 now. They're going to raise it to 5 next year or the year after. I still say that's ill-advised. We're fighting to keep families in this city, and just putting extra hurdles in the way of enticing new people into town is not good policy.
Have there been requests for more money for organizations like Public Works, as there's talk of more and more landslides and things like that?
That's a good question, and probably a better question for City Council whether they've been approached. A lot of this is the result of weather-related emergencies, and again, some of that may be recoverable from other sources. Certainly if a declaration of emergency is declared, if there's an emergency declared, there's potential for federal or state funding. And in some cases, we did seek it. I believe we've sought some for the landslide on Greenleaf Street and some other. So some of that could be recovered that way. But again, what I'm mostly concerned about right now is the increase in the salary number. Salaries, that doesn't change. I mean, we've got people on the payroll. We're paying them. We got to find a way in the second half of the year to lessen the need for overtime and find ways to make economies. If we continue to have these kind of weather-related emergencies, we're just not going to make budget, and we'll have to deal with that. That's why we have a rainy day fund. But hopefully, it doesn't come to that.
Do you think the decline in revenue, or the increase in the deed transfer
Yes.
increase?
I do. I mean, because when you talk to realtors, and I've talked to a lot of realtors around, the Western Pennsylvania market is still pretty vibrant. So if we still have a pretty vibrant market in the region, why are we having fewer sales at lower prices in the city? And the only difference is that we have the onerous real estate transfer tax. And so, yeah, I believe that's definitely a function of it. The other thing that, when you talk to lawyers who work in this industry will tell you is that as you increase the realty transfer tax, you are incentivizing big real estate owners to hire lawyers to find ways to avoid the realty transfer tax, which there are a number of loopholes in that tax still. Even though we've closed a number of the loopholes, the state has closed a number of the loopholes, there still are a number of ways to avoid paying that tax. So, this part of what you're seeing could be potential sales maybe waiting out a period to figure out their way around paying the 4.5%. And so, yeah, I definitely think that the number one factor as to why we're seeing less revenue is the increase in the tax itself. Okay? All right, thank you very much. Thanks for taking the time. Make sure you grab a copy of the report. I want to commend the accounting staff and our friends at Binkley and Canavy who help us put it together. It's something that is very well received in the community to the point now we have people calling us asking, when's it coming out? We want to see what's going on. So it's been a good step that this office has taken to make city finance more accessible to everybody. So thank you very much.